to the date of that term. Of Arteezy. There's so much history interrelated with the haters. They know his. They think they know history. They just got it all twisted and messed up. And it is just so important that we tell the truth. Engineer, please let us know when you're ready for the break. We'll be ready. And we are, just so into making sure that people understand what we're dealing with. And there's just so, much for us to cover. One of the questions, here we go. Hey, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Don't you dare touch that dial. It's exciting change time. We'll be right back.
Good morning, folks. I'm Earl Kirk. Here's the latest from News1.com. Governor Youngkin is planning for the worst while expecting the best when it comes to the economy for 2024.
During a recent Bloomberg event, Youngkin touted Virginia's job record, pointing out a 12-year high in workforce participation. Virginia is now number 3 in the nation for job growth, according to the governor. WSET reports he admits there is a risk for a recession next year, and Youngkin says he will make sure Virginia is prepared. He is expected to deliver his budget recommendations to state lawmakers December 20th. I'm Rebecca Hughes.
D.C. police are looking into a deadly Christmas morning shooting in Northwest. Officers were called to Longfellow Street around 8:30 and found 32-year-old Terrell Page dead. Cops are searching for suspects. Fairfax County Police are investigating after a woman was found dead following a house fire in Centerville. Firefighters were called to a townhome on Red River Drive around 4:30 Christmas morning and found the victim in the same room where the fire started. No word yet on the cause of the blaze or if foul play was involved. A union representing employees at the Washington Post has reportedly reached a tentative 3-year deal with the paper. The union had accused the Post of dragging its feet on a new contract, and members conducted a 24-hour strike earlier this month. The Post hopes the union will ratify the new deal later this week. The University of Maryland has taken a stand against anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. President Daryl Pines recently announced a new task force that'll focus on making sure the campus is welcoming to folks of all backgrounds. The panel will get to work in January. The region's Sober Ride program is offering free rides home to DMV residents through New Year's Day. The group has posted codes on its website good for a $15 Lyft ride between 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. Monday Night Football, Ravens beat the Niners 33-19. I'm Earl Kirk. When you're looking for news for Black America, go to News1.com.
Here at Urban One, we pride ourselves on supporting local and national Black-owned businesses throughout all of our radio markets. Since we began our Buy Black campaign, we like to spotlight some familiar and unfamiliar businesses in our communities. From arts and crafts, restaurants, clothing and apparel, heating, technology, electrical. One thing is true, Black folks have a business for everything you need, want, or could imagine. So let's show some love to all local and national Black-owned businesses, because when you spend money with the Black-owned business, you are helping your community as well as helping yourself. The businesses for this week are Positive Black Images, PositiveBlackImagesFineArt.com, Everett Hall Signature Clothing Designer. Call 202-362-0191. Mahogany Yacht, MahoganyYachtCharters.com. Thank you.
Welcome back to Igniting Change with Barbara Arnwine. I'm your co-host, Attorney Daryl Jones, the board chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, and we're so excited that you have decided to spend your Tuesday afternoon here on iconic WOL's Igniting Change Radio. Folks, let me tell you, we have 3 outstanding guests that are with us today. We have the first African-American woman elected to the state Senate out of the state of Massachusetts, also our treasurer for the Transformative Justice Coalition, Dianne Wilkerson, is with us. We also have with us Professor Ernest Quarles. You know, he's not just an attorney, not just a professor. He teaches over at Johns Hopkins University, as well as he's a board member of the African American Policy Forum. We also have with us the former president of the National Organization for Women. She has her own podcast, What Equality Looks Like. She's none other than Terry O'Neill. You know, Terry, as we were going into the break, we were talking about the top stories that each of you identified for 2023 as being one of your very top stories that was just sort of a motif that was going to travel through that people will remember 2023 by. And one of the things that you and Dianne lifted up was the Dobbs decision and the reproductive rights of women and how that is now being impacted by a decision by the Supreme Court. But part and parcel to that reproductive rights decision has to do with the Supreme Court of the United States. Do you believe that all of the issues, the morality issues, the issues in disclosure and failure to disclose financial context with the Supreme Court, do you think that's one of those top stories? And doesn't that, too, lend into the Dobbs understanding of how we got to this point of the states dealing with Dobbs?
Oh, Daryl, I'm so glad you raised that. I'm so glad you said that because absolutely, the Supreme Court is being revealed as deeply troubled by corruption, flat out corruption. Billionaires are purchasing Supreme Court justices. Certainly Justice Thomas, presumably Justice Alito, although I think he's very driven by extreme right-wing ideology on his own. But the flow of money to Supreme Court justices, plural, and the refusal of the Chief Justice to do any kind of investigation. For example, it appears now, with all the reporting that I've read, it looks like it was Samuel Alito who leaked the Dobbs decision, and that it looks as if the reason he did that was to stop Kavanaugh from changing his vote or moderating his vote. Roberts wanted to have a more moderate outcome of the Dobbs decision. Alito wanted his majority for his radical, sort of uprooting Roe v. Wade entirely. And it appears that Alito leaked the Dobbs decision to achieve that goal. And it also appears that right-wing billionaires knew about it and supported that there was this machinations going on to make the decision come out the way these billionaires wanted it to come out. So the corruption in the Supreme Court is real. It is serious, and I don't think it's getting enough airtime. Right now, you've got cases coming to the Supreme Court involving Donald Trump's corruption, and you have Justice Thomas, whose wife was up to her ears in the sedition of January 6th, and he's not recusing himself from any of those cases. It's really awful.
And Professor Quarles, I got to ask you, you're a practicing attorney, you're a professor and everything at Hopkins. Look, we're looking at the Supreme Court. Are we beginning to see the questioning of one of the pillars of our democracy with regard to the courts and what we see happening there?
That's really interesting. The questions are out there. They're just innumerable. And quite frankly, I know when I was in law school, our professors would constantly be criticizing Rehnquist and Scalia for the lack of foundational logic in their decisions. And ever since Clarence Thomas has been on the court, I mean, he literally right now he's a pariah. I mean, as bad as I thought Rehnquist and Scalia might have been and differed in opinion, there is just no end to what Thomas's thinking will do to alter the foundational components of our democracy in our country. So, I mean, I think, a lot of questions have been brought, but I think the most critical thing for me, quite honestly, is that with Dobbs in particular, Democrats haven't really figured out the right way to even talk about abortion, Dobbs, or the Supreme Court. And there just isn't enough focus and attention on women's health issues in the marketing, advertising, or whatever the ads that are being run by our elected officials on any level, even going – I mean, it's been, I think 2 weeks after the Dobbs decision, there was nothing coming out of the leadership, the party leadership in the Democratic Party. And then slowly, people have started to realize that, maybe I can run on these abortion issues. But they were like avoiding them like the third rail. And I think there is absolutely right.
Yes, thank you, Ernie. And I want to point out to everyone, first of all, one of the biggest beautiful stories of 2023 was North Carolina finally adopting and implementing health care, Medicaid for all of their citizens. Medicaid being available in North Carolina and hundreds of thousands of people having access now. That's a big story, one that I am so proud of. In North Carolina, keep voting. Keep voting. You got to vote because that's how you got there. Good accomplishments. I also want to, talk about, how intersectional failure was mentioned. And let's talk about why people don't want blacks and browns and they don't want Native Americans and Asian Americans to vote because of the way we vote. Now, one of the stories that's gotten buried, we're talking about Dobbs. One of the biggest stories that's gotten buried, and Daryl and I, of course, and Terry, we were all on that John Lewis bus, the TJC, Transformative Justice Good Trouble bus. We went all through Kentucky getting out the vote, all through Ohio getting out the vote. And one of the stories that's been buried is that the African American vote in Ohio, 82% of all African American voters voted for issue number 1 so that women could have reproductive choice. That is the connection. They fear the way that blacks and Latinos and Native Americans and, Asian Americans vote because we vote so progressively, especially our young people. And people don't see the connection between voter suppression and women's rights, women's reproductive rights. Dianne, what's going on? Why can't we see?
Well, Barbara, I just want to note that you started this comment hailing North Carolina for finally in 2023 adopting health care for its citizens, right? Like so this is where we are. When you say you're right to say they don't see the connection, I would say the people who are plotting do. Yes. And that's why we're seeing this all-out effort in every way imaginable. And I continue to be grateful to TJC because, it's patting ourselves on the back. Barbara, you just do not hear the conversations at the level that we should on a day-to-day basis about the links that states and right-wingers are going to and willing to go to deny votes to black and brown people. And there is a reason for that, right? And you just mentioned one of them. They see that connection. They also know that given their thinking of the day, that if we are voting in large numbers, we're not going to be voting for them, right? We're not going to be voting for our own demise because that's really what this is all about, and our own subjugation. And this whole national effort to convince the people of this country that slavery wasn't so bad. Right? We underestimate the patience and the time that people are prepared to spend to get there. Dobbs didn't happen in a month. It didn't happen in 2023, right? And so we have to be ever vigilant. And I think that's just the reason for me that I am so delighted to be at all associated with TJC, because I think we figured this out, and that's our mission.
Well, it's really interesting because there are so many, there are several high moments of what has been experienced also in 2023, because we did have the victory, Barbara, with Evan Milligan, right? With the Milligan decision. I mean, that certainly was a high mark. And, but we've got to temper those high marks with what came behind it, right? Because now we're dealing with this decision out of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Eighth Circuit that has now come out in 2023, simply saying that, pursuant to the Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, that individuals cannot sue, when their voting rights have been interfered with. A private person can't sue because there's a sign up that says that only blacks can vote over, across the street and only whites can vote here. You can't sue individually on that. The NAACP wouldn't be able to come in to be able to sue under the Voting Rights Act.